Hey there, Internet friends. Welcome to another episode of That Nerdy Site Show, a weekly podcast where the team members from That Nerdy Site get together to talk about our lives and all of the nerdy things we love about them. I'm your host, Trevor Starkey, and joining me this week we have Cameron Abbott. How you doing, Cameron?
Time to crack open a cold one.
Alrighty. Yep, there you go.
What's going on, nerds?
What is going on? And we have Frank Bazzani joining us. How you doing, Frank?
Pretty good.
Pretty good, all things considered.
Yep, exactly.
The world on fire outside of us. And it's like, even like, just looking at the world around us today, I'm like, God, like, it's weird to do a podcast like this, but it's like having this as part of my routine is also one of the things that's helping keep me sane. So
Yeah.
for like my mental health, if nothing else, thank you guys for sitting down to do this with me. Like this weekend, I have just been pretty much like confined to my bed and just staring at my phone and screens and stuff and seeing social media. And the only thing that has gotten me motivated to like get out and move around and do anything has been I hopped over and did a podcast with our friends over at the Scoot Gang yesterday, and then doing this one today. But otherwise, it's just been like a depressed mess of like anger and frustration and impotence and helplessness and ugh. So thank you guys at least for getting me out of bed for an hour or so here to talk about what else we've been doing, all things considered. A little bit of housekeeping. If you enjoy what you hear, please remember to like, subscribe, rate, review the podcast everywhere you can. And if you are feeling generous, you can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/thatnerdysite. But I will also say, like, there are significantly more things you can be supporting right now, and I will not at all fault you for any of that. But I do want to give a shout out to some of our patrons who are supporting us. We've recently retooled our tiers, so some more people are going to get shout outs a little bit more frequently here. We have kind of we've lowered our tier threshold for monthly Patreon shout outs to I want to say $20 and above gets a monthly shout out now, where it used to be $50. And our monthly Patreon producers for this month are Pam and Bev Larson, Sherry Starkey, Teresa Wilkinson, and myself, Trevor Starkey. And then our weekly producer shout out here now at the $50 and above threshold is Jason Bellevue. Thank you, Jason Bellevue, for supporting us. We will be giving you kind of weekly shout outs now until that shifts. So no new patrons to shout out, but those are our kind of producer level shout outs under the new structure. So with that out of the way, let's dive into some of the stuff that we've been up to. Cameron, I will throw it to you first. One of the things you talked about was War of the Visions, Final Fantasy Brave Exvius last week, I think it was.
Yes, I did.
And you talking about it got me super like interested and invested in that game, so I've fallen headlong into it.
Yeah, you have. Oh my gosh, dude, you're like level 47.
Yeah.
I'm like level 48, like 48, 49, and I've been playing since launch. You've been playing for like 4 days.
You are level 51, and I know that because I pretty much always bring you into battle with me.
Oh, you do? Okay. I don't ever bring anybody else into battle.
I do it. I do it largely because I know I can like use you to do some of like the tiered level, or not tiers, like the multiplier kind of things, or the chain attacks. Mm-hmm. Like, you need to get like a chain of like 2 attacks. So I'm like, okay, well, my characters are too strong, so I'll bring like your guy in, and we'll just do like stone throws at people to try and build up a chain before anybody else attacks or something like that. But yes, so we talked about it a little bit last week. Very Final Fantasy Tactics War of the Lions inspired kind of game. And certainly having jumped in after you talked about it, like, yep, that's absolutely what this is, but with a whole bunch of like free-to-play mechanics and stuff thrown in there, which
like really not egregious at all. I feel like
not egregious in that they don't like interfere with your ability to progress through the game, but there are just so many currencies and so many menus and stuff that I'm overwhelmed by the amount of things that it wants me to upgrade, because it's trying to get me to pay for all of those upgrade materials and stuff. So that's frustrating, but also probably because I've just like I have put like 3 months worth of playing time into it in 1 week's time, basically.
Yeah.
So yeah,
You're running into those thresholds that those of us who didn't go into it like you did have had like progressively like run into.
yeah.
I will say that if you use the chocobo mining, like if you just like and that's another thing is like for people like me who've been playing since launch, like we have these stockpiles that our chocobo expeditions have been bringing in resources for,
Yep.
versus you've been playing for just less than a week and you've gotten to this point now, and it's like that's like I don't assume that normally I don't think people like go that hard into it, Trevor.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
But
Like I
also
said, I've been lying in bed so much in the last few days, especially, that like I just have not been motivated to get out and do anything else. So
and that's fair.
And one of the things
on
just on the chocobo mining in particular, one of the things that like I didn't realize I could change the mine that they go to or whatever for the first, I don't know, 5 or 6 days. So I was just getting a whole ton of like earth materials. I was like, I thought it was going to be like, oh, at some point like the week is going to change over or something and it's going to send me on a different one. And it was because it didn't explain to me that like, oh no, when you go in and like select party formation or something, you can go in and change which area you want to go to. So I've since switched up a couple, but yeah.
Yeah. It depends. Like I really enjoy it because you can also choose to just mine for ore. Mm-hmm. So adamantine, you just mine for that, and so that takes care of all of like your weapon upgrades and stuff, and like your equipment upgrades, which is great.
Yeah.
But also, if you will start running into this where you're going to have like millions upon millions of gil.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, you can use the open shop to just go through and just like purge the shop of anything that's gold related. And
yeah, I already do that.
Yeah. It honestly, you'll start to see if you keep doing that entire thing. And this is the thing about this game that I think separates it from other free to play games. Other free to play games, they front load you, and then eventually they drizzle out, like they do little driplets of resources going forward.
Mm-hmm.
This game does a lot to say, okay, we're going to give you like a base start here, but then it's just as you get further and further along playing more and more into the game, you're rewarded by much more resources. And it's that reason in particular that I think it's actually like structured super well, because at the end of the day, like they give you Mont right up front, and Mont is one of the best units in the game. Like if you max him out completely, he's one of the top tier units, despite only being an MR ranking and not an UR ranking. So, and like super like powerful. Like so for people who haven't played the game, each character that you get has 3 classes that, as you quote unquote awaken them with resources, it unlocks a new class for them. Mont is a soldier, or he's Lord, Paladin, and Knight. So he had, or soldier. I can't remember which. No, it's Knight. This is the last one. Just this tank of a unit, just absolute unit of a lad, and he is just strong as heck. And if you upgrade him and give him the right equipment, he is just a damage dealing monster that just goes out and just destroys and wrecks people. Which is so like super interesting and cool, because like in the story he's noted as being like the weaker prince.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, who are you running? So I do this thing where I like to have the story line up with the unit that I'm using. So I literally have a unit Fortemps and a unit Kadum. And depending on which part of the story I'm playing, I choose which one of those. And then there's a part of a story where you don't play as either unit. And so I'm like, cool, I'll just throw together a bunch of horn units, and there we go. But I'm curious, like, how do you have your units set up?
I'm just using whoever's strongest. I'm barely paying attention to the story, because it's one of the things that, like, as great and as lauded as the Final Fantasy Tactics War of the Lion story is, I am much more interested in that kind of tactics gameplay than getting confused by who's who has allegiance to who and all that stuff. So I couldn't tell you who's on what side of the army or any of that kind of stuff. It's just like so I'm running with Mont, and then I unlocked a samurai girl who's now at like max level, and so I'm like waiting for supplies to be able to awaken her to level things up. I've got I think two other like UR characters. Like one's a mage, one's got a spear, and then Lilith is I think is the one that rounds out my top 5 basically.
Nice. Okay.
And then
Solid.
the girl, the Moncherie, no, not Moncherie, Maucherie or something like that.
Maucherie, yeah. Maucherie.
Like I unlocked her, and I unlocked I think her dad or one of the dads.
Oh,
like
you got
one of the kings.
Is it Rob?
Yeah, Rob.
Is it Rob or
Yeah.
Dude, that's awesome. I have Elda, who's sick as heck, but Rob is like he has that samurai unit.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yeah.
so good.
And then I also unlocked the other brother in one of in like a
Stern.
Yeah, Stern. So yeah, like I've got a lot of good characters, but I'm not overly switching them out really.
And I think that's how most people are. I'm totally enthralled with the story. Like it's just like I'm like, oh, I've been waiting for something like this. Like very much like a feudal age societal kind of like experience, so to speak, where you're seeing like decisions that are being made in this game by some of the characters are decisions that make sense if you have a feudal way of thinking. But if you have a modern way of looking at it, you're like, well, that's weird. Why would you do that? It's like, well, it's all part of the societal structure. Like, why does he do this or why do they do that? Like, why does Eld act the way he does? And it's super cool to see kind of how that flows into things and how other characters react to it. So, gosh, it's super cool.
It's definitely fun. I do feel like because I've put so much time in such a short burst that I feel like I have run into a wall where I can't, level up characters, or I don't have materials to awaken new abilities or any of that kind of stuff because I'm like capped out on like the one item that 5 different people need to move on to the next job level or something like that. So it's a little irksome there. And then it's like I said, I'm at times I'm just overwhelmed by the sheer number of other things there are to like upgrade, like equipment and espers and so there's equipment, espers, the abilities themselves, like you can upgrade abilities, and I'm just like I have almost no magic pot points or anything to do anything with that, so that's a moot thing for me at this point. And so it's like I've got plenty of, like, I could probably go through and just like max everybody's experience up to whatever max level they can get to right now, but then it's like, well, then I'm super overpowered for anything I'm doing story wise, and it makes building some of those chains that you need to do to like get all of the like 5-star ratings or whatever on a level, makes some of that even harder to do. So I'm just kind of like, all right, I need to not worry about that. And then at the same time, I'm like, I'll go into like the arena and fight like a duel or something, and I'll just get like my ass handed to me. I'm like, well,
yep.
I clearly can't do anything on this front, so and then the guild I joined, I haven't been able to like do anything in that, so I finally just left that guild today because it seemed to be very inactive, and so I'm gonna try and move into a more active one.
I created my own guild just so I could do the crossboard.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And like it's done nothing. Like I go in and I do attendance every day, and that's it. Like, don't come to my guild. Like if you're wondering about my guild, don't come to my guild.
Okay.
My guild is literally just me abusing the guild mechanics to get free gil. That's
okay.
it.
I don't even know what the like, because every time like I get notifications on my phone being like the guild battle is beginning, like log in to play, and I'll log in and like nothing, it'll say something to the effect of like you don't meet the requirements or your guild doesn't meet the requirements. I'm like, okay, well, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing here then.
You have to have like active, like you have to have like a set of group of people who are active.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's just not sounding like what your guild does.
Yeah. The like a day or so ago, I got like a notification basically saying the guild leader hasn't logged in whatever number of days, so and so has been automatically promoted to the new guild leader. So I was like, okay, cool. Then yeah, I'm gonna bounce. So yeah,
Which is interesting because you know that there's those groups out there who played like Clash of Clans for years.
Yeah.
Where like they're like super into it and they're gonna be like the camaraderie that you get from a guild like that is insane. Like they're really cool people, but they're also intense, and you have to like
yeah,
be willing to like
I'm not
drop
looking for
that,
but yeah,
you have to be willing to drop fat stacks of gil if you want to be top tier like that.
You gotta pay your guild dues, otherwise they're gonna come break your legs.
Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of my my bum rush experience of War of the Visions. Like again, enjoying for the most part the combat, but it like I have also very quickly run across like, well, like all of these maps are pretty much the same. I'm not really encountering new things at this point.
Yeah.
And I'm I don't know, somewhere midway through chapter 2 in the story, I think.
There's some newer stuff. Not like there might be one or two new maps types, but that's about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also like enemy variety doesn't really change much from what you've seen so far.
Yeah.
I would think the greatest aspect of this game that could definitely be improved upon is if they took the time that they're like. And another thing is that I actually really appreciate is there is a set core list of characters that they have put out, and they are not putting out. They're putting out a new one or like every update, but like that's it. They're not going crazy. They're not going ham. Some of these games put out like 3 or 4 new characters every update that are just like a nightmare to get. They also do the thing where they're like, we're going to go ahead and make it focus so that you have an improved rating of possibly unlocking them.
Yeah.
And another great thing is duplicates just get turned into resources for upgrading your character units so that it's never wasted.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
And that's so like I've gone through and like yeah, I've upgraded and like awakened a ton of characters that I'm not using though. So like yeah, it's not wasted, but I it is kind of like, well, like yeah, I'll get this person to limit break, 3 or 4 or something like that, but they're still weak enough that they don't really warrant me actually like moving them into rotation. So vision
those unfortunate
vision
rare
cards
and
are another
super
one of
rare
those things that you can upgrade, and I'm just like, I don't even know what the vision cards do.
Oh, dude, they give you really sick status, like bonus stats.
I mean, yeah, I guess. Like I've seen them, but I don't know how really dramatic they are compared to what I need, or like the like really powerful ones I'm getting are magic focused or something, and none of my core team is really magic attacker. So I'm like, well, this doesn't really do me much good. So yeah.
Yeah.
But
how do you feel about the espers though?
I mean, they're like fine. I don't use them all that much. Like I think it's really cool that a couple of them have like a nice little cinematic kind of thing tied to it. Like the first time I busted out Ifrit or Siren, that was pretty cool. But then there are like so many that just don't have anything, so it's like, well, okay.
Yeah, if they're like a basic creature, they don't really have one.
Yeah, like excuse me. Cactar is using like he uses 1,000 points damage right now, so that is one of my stronger ones, and he has no real like visual thing behind him. Sorry.
Odin's sick. I pulled him, and his Zenkutsun is just too nice.
Cool. Yeah, I have not gotten Odin. I've just got, I think of the ones that have any kind of actual video behind them, I think it's just Ifrit and Siren, and then yeah, I've got like a bomb and a zoo and like just a whole bunch of the monsters, like Marlboro, yeah. But yeah, it's I mean, it's fun, it's fine, it's definitely something that I will probably fall away from when Last of Us Part 2 comes out or something, that I'm like more devoted to sitting down and actually playing a thing. Because I don't know if there's going to be enough to keep me hooked in here for the long haul kind of thing, but I'm enjoying it for what it is for now. It definitely scratches that Final Fantasy Tactics itch. So thank you for shouting it out last week.
Yeah, no problem.
Frank, let's throw it over to you. Speaking of The Last of Us, a few of us at the site have been playing through The Last of Us recently, and we're going to do an episode kind of in the near future, kind of looking back at the first Last of Us in anticipation for the sequel's release here in a couple weeks. But so we won't dive too much into that. But in particular, you've been playing The Last of Us multiplayer. So how's that been? Because we probably won't dive too deeply into that when we do our retrospective kind of look back. So tell us about your Last of Us multiplayer experience, Frank.
Yeah, so far, so far it's actually been pretty awesome. I definitely enjoyed it back in the day, like when the Last of Us Remaster came out on PS4. I watched a lot more of the multiplayer than I played, but when I tried to dive in and do like one or two rounds, it didn't really connect, so I just kind of put it down and never went back. And now that we were kind of going back and revisiting it, I even kind of mentioned as a joke, I was like, "Oh, when are we squatting up for multiplayer?" And then I just went in and kind of dove in, and honestly, it kind of grabbed me. Like I've been wanting to play for the whole weekend, but I've been playing like all afternoon today. I dove in and did my first match. I sided with the hunters because you can pick the hunters or the fireflies, like who you kind of faction with.
Yep.
And I really just enjoy like how much they actually put into it, because I know a lot of people like the Uncharted multiplayer suites, and they did enjoy the Last of Us suite too, but it's like there's so many moving pieces. It's not just like deathmatch or like trying to get supplies or trying to like get the enemy's lockbox. It is this whole extra thing of, even if you lose, you're still going out there to try to get like resources and bring them back for your faction. And the more resources you get, the more people join your faction. But then that's the more resources you have to then get in the next match. And then if you're not getting enough resources, people are getting sick and like dying. And it's something that I definitely really enjoy, because even my first couple matches jumping in, we lost. Like I lost like 3, 4, 5 matches in a row, but I was hitting all of like my resource requirements, so I was winning like my metagame, and my faction was doing fine and growing and doing everything like that. And that was something that I think like is really awesome. And I guess there's going to be no multiplayer with The Last of Us 2 part 2 like right off the bat, but I really do hope they kind of do bring this back. Like they were saying, they're going to do like a separate kind of multiplayer thing for The Last of Us, and I do hope they bring this back, because like it's a lot of fun even with the old version.
Yeah, it's one of the things I always heard. Like I never looked too deep into what the factions really, what that was and what that played out. So like how you're describing it is probably the most I've ever really like heard about the details of it. But I mean, I always heard just from a very top level view of like it was one of the things that people really liked, how it innovated and how like it did different things in the multiplayer space. I just am too much of a not multiplayer guy to have ever even bothered looking into it, and I still have like you joked about like squatting up, and I was like, not me. not that, like I looked at it, I was like, nope, and that's not a thing I'm gonna ever do. But I'm like, it definitely has like its very passionate kind of fan base.
I just like I do really like how the way they tried to innovate with it. They just tried to do different things, and I guess there's something to be said for probably most of us where you just want to see those numbers kind of tick up. And like I love just seeing like, oh, this is my faction and it's growing. And then they try to go the extra mile. Like you get these messages that's like, John is building a chicken coop and Emily is learning how to do first aid. Like you're because they're like growing as it grows. Like they're trying to like get new things, or like the faction's growing. You're basically building a camp, like a settlement. And that's something I mean, I really like it. And because you're one of the things that is kind of the downfall of it for me, at least, is because you're basically every round of multiplayer you play is a day, and the journey of the faction that you're trying to get to the end to is 12 weeks. So you have to do whatever 7 times 12 is, and that's like,
Mm-hmm.
and if you fuck up at any point, like if you just don't get those resources for your people, then people start dying. My point there is like it could all fall apart in like week 11, and you just have to
Yeah,
start over.
yeah.
And like that's one of the things, I get why it's like that, but I think that's ultimately like one of the biggest downfalls of it, probably because I played all afternoon, and I'm in week 2, and I can't ever see taking this to week 12. And
Mm.
like even though I came into this saying like I'm having a great time, like I'm having a ton of fun getting all these resources. Something I did fail to mention that I like about the actual metagame of like when you're in the match, because you're collecting these resources, like you're scavenging for them, you're getting kills, you're kind of getting more resources off the people you kill. But then you can buy stuff like in the match, like armor. You can upgrade your weapon. So instead of assault rifle, you have like assault rifle level 2, and it does like more damage. And then you can get armor, so you take more damage. Like you can get all these things to buff you and make it easier, but you're spending those resources that you're ultimately trying to like take back with you for the faction. So I think that's kind of a fun metagame too. Like the whole enjoyment I'm getting out of it is definitely the faction and trying to get resources. But that's kind of a lot of the things that I love about a lot of games when I have a settlement and I just am going out there and getting all these things and coming back and we're building up and getting more powerful. And I like that they just kind of put that in like a multiplayer spin. And it definitely encourages me at least to keep going like round around around, but where most other multiplayers I just really couldn't care less.
Yeah. I remember like when I hopped in for my recent replay, I was like, I looked at like the trophy list to see if there was anything I was really going to try and go for, and it reminded me of like, oh yeah, that's right. Like Last of Us trophies are terrible because they tied so many of them to this very long and drawn out faction thing that you can, as you kind of alluded to, like fail at the last minute. You can put all this time into and fail, and so you don't get the trophy that you need to get, and so it's a whole bunch of just wasted time. So it was like that, and then also just the difficulty, like tied the trophies tied to difficulty, that I was just like, nope, that's not gonna be me. But I did go through and get like all the collectible ones, so yay for that. But yeah, I saw friend of the channel, Mike Toundro over with kinda NYC, the New York Kinda Funny crew. He's going through and he basically is trying for a platinum of the remaster, in anticipation of the sequel. And I was like, Godspeed to you, man, if you go for it. And he was like, yeah, I got friends helping me with the multiplayer, so I should be okay on that front. And then he was just starting his like grounded plus like playthrough or something like that, which is the hardest difficulty on the game in New Game Plus kind of thing. And I was like, yep, good luck to you, man. I made it through. I played through normal, and then I played again through normal plus to do some of the trophy cleanup, and that's all I needed to do. I don't need to prove anything to myself and try and play it on any harder difficulties on this one, because I know it's a platinum I'm just never gonna get.
I'm 100% with you there because this is a platinum I want, if anything, or I wanted even before, but I just am not going to. And the multiplayer is one of the hugest things because those two trophies take like 40 hours because you have to do
Mm-hmm.
the Firefly and the Hunter story, and
Yep.
like you said too, you have to finish it, which is the 12 weeks. And so like that's already a nightmare. And then even like you said too, the other one that kind of undoes the whole thing is the difficulty, because in the remaster you need to do it on the hardest difficulty, and then you need to do it again on New Game Plus, which I guess should be a little bit easier because you're upgraded. But that also, I've played The Last of Us on that difficulty, and it is the most unfun thing I've like I don't want to say ever played, but it to me it just completely like ruins the entire game. I
Yeah.
understand it's like it's an incredibly realistic experience, which is what they wanted, but you can't do any of the hearing to see people. You have literally no ammo whatsoever. Like you're basically just using knives, and when they throw you against like four clickers at the same time, it's just a nightmare.
Yeah. It's interesting because one of the things I was like dreading recently was when I went and did the when I played the Final Fantasy VII remake, because I was like, I played through the game, really enjoyed it, and then I was like, do I want to do the hard mode stuff? Because I know, especially when you learn that hard mode in that game means that you can't use items and your MP is limited basically every chapter, so you can only like restore your MP by like smacking the boxes or something like that. So it's like I was like, okay, well this drastically changes how you have to play that game, and you have to be way more strategic about it. And in that case, I found a new appreciation for the game's mechanics and the challenge of playing through on hard mode. So that it made me like the game more having to actually play through it on hard mode. But yeah, something like Last of Us, I'm just like, nope, that is Bloodborne-ifying this game, and I don't want to do that.
Yeah, because so in kind of like the other end of the spectrum, when I was going back and trying to do some trophy cleanup, I put it on easy, and it's like it's fun. I'm running through. I was doing like I played the whole game when I was doing the cleanup is basically just firefighting everything because I was like I don't have to worry about my resources because I'm just gonna bounce out of this chapter. So it was like, and if anything, I'm trying to go fast, so I just put it on easy, and I'm just shotgunning people and the game's super forgiving. There's like supplies everywhere, and I definitely get why it's like that might not be fun for some people, but to me, I was like, I think this is very fun. But when you put it on grounded, and when you find one bullet, you're like, oh my god, this is the best thing I've ever found in the entire game.
And then you shoot and you miss whoever you're aiming at, and it's like, no. Yeah, that's not what I'm looking for in my escapism into a post-apocalyptic post-pandemic world for Last of Us. Yay. Well, cool. I'm glad you're enjoying multiplayer. I'm curious to see or hear how long you stick with it. Maybe we'll talk about it a little bit more when we get to kind of our retrospective look back on the game here in a week or two.
Yeah,
Cool.
I don't know how much I'm gonna put into it, but I know I have a little bit more to go because I need 3 more people to get 40 people in my faction. And then there's also the trophy hunter part of me definitely got hit because there is easy multiplayer trophies for completing matches on certain levels and then completing a map or completing a certain game on a certain map with like 5 downs, which I've been doing pretty well on. Like I've been getting a lot of kills in my matches, so I keep popping all those. So I'm like, I definitely, the trophy hunter side is definitely all about the multiplayer right now. So I'm hoping to see how many I can walk away with. I only have like a handful left.
All right. Well, I look forward to hearing back from you in the coming weeks. Then, Cam. Speaking of another thing that we'll eventually try and do kind of a spoiler cast thing on, you've been playing through Persona 5 Royal, which both Frank and I have fully completed at this point. How far are you in Persona 5 Royal at this point?
I finished summer vacation. I'm back to school. I have yet to take the school trip. I'm about a day away from doing that. I have this game it's super interesting, and I guess it's because they made it much easier to like max out your social stats before the end of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Because like I have 3 out of my 4 social stats totally maxed out. I just upgraded my guts to max guts, and so that's guts, proficiency, and charm that are just maxed out.
Mm-hmm.
And knowledge is close, and then I'm 1 away on kindness.
Yeah.
So stats wise, like I'm super there. I'm ready to just like I'm not gonna have to worry about doing the stat building stuff again. Then I can just start hammering in on the confidants as I'm like running my way through the story. Um, Super like enjoying the heck out of it. Man, I love this game.
Yeah.
Um, the the niceties that they put in for Royal about actually being able to do stuff at night, much even if it's just in the cafe, is so nice. Like it
Yep.
feels like you just have so much more time to do. Like you have just so much more room for activities.
Yeah. That's
And
having your nights, and then also the when you do like the confident kind of scenes, they have a nice little like they call to check in on you after the scene, so you get like one more chance to get a little bit of kind of an uptick in your relationship with them towards the next confidant boost. So
I mean that's true. Although sometimes they just give you those dialogue options like you gotta take. Like when Makoto goes, "Am I really like a robot?" and you can go beep boop, and so I gotta go beep boop.
I mean,
Like
sure.
I love Makoto. I love Makoto dearly. She's top tier, one of the top tier best girls. But when you give me a dialogue option to say beep boop, I gotta take that beep boop.
Yeah. All right. Weirdo.
Also, I've been really blown away by the Justice one in this game, which is Akechi. Akechi's like the new experiences you get with Akechi throughout the beginning, like throughout the entirety of the game, I just hit rank 6 with him, and like it's totally different. Like it gives you a totally different tone for Akechi. Um, and like we're not going to get into spoilers here, of course, but it gives a different look at his character that I don't know if it's more sympathetic so much as it's just it's just a different way of like coming across his character rather than it being kind of all condensed into a single month.
Yeah, like he's a more developed person now instead of just being like some guy that shows up like halfway through the game.
Well, another thing about it is that like his character, like the developments you have with him as his character, they have room to breathe. And so
Hmm.
like it doesn't feel like you're just being shoved everything in and then it's just like, "Oh, now feel bad for him." It's like there's time. Like you get indications his personality is much more developed because of the way that it's able to breathe and then some of the reactions he has. It's really quite good. Uh, and then on top of that, I finished Kasumi's because hers is only like 5 ranks, easy to max out.
Yeah.
That's cool.
That's what people have been saying, and I'm like, you know what? I can kind of see it. We'll wait. We have to wait and see. I have not made a strong decision on who I'm gonna like make the romantic partner this time around. Like it's weird because like as an adult, I want to go for the adults,
Yeah.
but as I'm playing a teenager, that's
Yeah.
wrong.
That's
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I
So
struggle
it's
with
like,
this because
so I,
I love the
the
goth
doctor.
doctor, and I
Oh, she's
also
so
I
good.
like the teacher too. Like I
Oh,
like the teacher a lot.
even the like less like the lackluster adult romance options are still like pretty good.
Yeah.
Um, Fortune teller and
The
the
reporter.
reporter like not bad, like not as not as
I mean,
like
I remember the reporter one being super problematic.
it's problematic AF, dude.
Like
If you
she
think of it like
knows she's going after jailbait, and and she doesn't have any problem with that.
on multiple
She's
occasions
had a
she
few
offers
drinks.
you out yeah on multiple occasions she offers you alcohol like
Yeah.
she knows what she's doing like this is like it's definitely not okay but like as an adult if it was like an adult making the moves on you like this it'd be fine
Yeah.
but it's not you're a child in this game and it's not okay and it's certainly not okay for your teacher to be getting into a relationship with you.
Yeah.
The doctor you kind of lie to her about your age up front so it's a bit different.
She knows.
I mean she figures it out for sure. But like, but like the beginning of it is like you lied initially, and so she takes a bit more of an adult tone with you. Um, Granted, doesn't fix the fact that later when she definitely finds out that you're not, you're not that old, that's a problem. But here's the thing. So like as an adult, I want to go for the adult choices because do I get a little skeeved out that I'm pursuing like high school girls? Yes, as I should be. But like you're cutting in between a catch-22 on this.
Yeah.
know?
You're breaking a law somewhere.
Yeah. It's that
Like
it's that it's that ludonarrative dissonance that usually we talk about when we talk about like Nathan Drake killing hundreds of people. But here it is like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to be playing a high schooler, but it feels weird trying to romance somebody who's like 14. Versus
like it's because you have like the like as an adult we have the way of thinking and like we know people and we've been through these experiences with friends and family and significant others over the years that like the right answers to these questions that they're asking you and but at the same time it's like it's also kind of very manipulative because the kind of answers for this because you're an adult man playing a high school boy and it's rough, man. It's rough.
yeah.
But come Valentine's Day, I gotta have a sugar baby. So
Or
let's go.
14.
You could do that if you.
Yeah,
if
that's
it's just
I
romance
forgot. I forgot until like near the end of the game, and I was like, "Oh yeah, that's right. I could have romanced every one of them," and then it would have like at some point it would have like turned into like, no, you got to pick like one. But I very much when you get to the ends of those kinds of confidant things where it's like I have to think carefully about what I say next, and it's like, okay, if you say this, it's the romance option. If you say this, it's the friend option. Every time, save the one I romanced in this case, Kasumi, I was like, okay, yep, I got to pick the friend option here. I got to pick the friend option. But yeah, I look forward to kind of, especially especially like the end game stuff, all the really new stuff. I look forward to discussing that with you when you start encountering that, Cam. Because
Should be soon.
yeah,
Because this is I have 3 more palaces in the main game.
yeah,
4 if you
I mean,
count the rest of mementos.
which is still a lot of fucking time.
Yeah, you haven't done Okumura yet, right?
No, I'm dreading that one.
God,
Yeah.
they made it better, but it still takes forever.
It's still the biggest night. Like I can only imagine how much of a nightmare it is, even with all like the shortcuts they put into the game now. Like all the dungeons I went through, like they had tons of shortcuts to get you like through the palace quicker, which is great. Like Futaba's, there's an entire like you're able to skip the entire like last section right before the boss fight if you want to. I didn't because I'm just like I'm also pretty powered up. Like there's not too many personas that are like available from fusions that are outside of my grasp. So like I'm on par with dungeon level with probably Okumura stuff right now. So I don't imagine like I'll have like a lot of the frustrations of being underleveled because I've been grinding memento. I grinded mementos early on. I got the I unlocked all the way to like 150% bonus XP.
Yeah.
So, like that's been a thing. That's been a lifesaver actually because I also did the same thing with money. It's like I haven't had any money troubles like I did in the last game.
Yeah, I mean I played through the thing on easy because I was just trying to experience the new story stuff, so I didn't really encounter any kind of like grinding or difficulty needs or anything like that. In fact, I appreciated getting to the point where I could just plow through people in Mementos, and it was like it took you automatically to like the victory screen, and I didn't have to actually like hop in and out of fights all the time.
You
So,
can also you can do that on foot in the palaces
yeah,
too.
yeah.
That's
So
I love that. That was huge for me.
yeah, it was a throwback to me for Earthbound, which like once you're super overpowered, it'll be like smash, you beat these guys. You don't actually have to pick the fight and do that stuff. I always appreciate games that kind of recognize that they don't want to waste your time with that anymore. So
I might have want to invest in doing that. You said that's on easy mode?
I mean, it's basically once you're super overpowered, it automatic. Actually, I think
I think it's
tied to
Ryuji's
somebody's
confidant. I think you have to max out Ryuji.
Okay, yeah, it's tied to somebody's confidant level.
Okay.
Where
All right.
where like weaker enemies you'll just automatically defeat. Yeah, it feels like it was either Ryuji or the Shogi girl. Harumi, maybe.
I think the Shogi girl gives you, when you max her out now, she gives you the ability to rotate party members, whoever it is.
Yeah,
So it
that's
like
right.
expands that out. I think Ryuji's the one that gives you the ability to just sim the fights.
Okay. Yeah.
Which also,
Anyway.
I love the way they changed all the confidant abilities. Love it. Definitely
Oh, yeah.
like A+.
There's more of them and they're more useful. Like it's great.
Yeah, and like with Hifumi, they give you her most useful one just right off the bat, and I was like,
Yep.
oh my god, like they already made the combat so much better, and then when they just give you that, I was like, oh
Yeah, and the ability to like baton pass right out the gate and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that was
Lots
huge.
of good quality of life improvements. Just the way I described it, because we recorded this week's That D Plus show with a friend of the show, Alex O'Neill. That'll be coming out tomorrow if you're listening to this the day this episode goes live. And after we were done recording, we talked a little bit, Cam and I, with Alex, because Alex has gone out there and said that Persona 5 Royal is now his like favorite game of all time and stuff. And so we talked about how the game does do a really good job of even though it adds like all of the like most of the new content to the end of the game, it does a really good job of speeding up that first 80 to 90 hours of the game by improving a lot of the combat stuff and just making it so much more efficient, so that like that time shrinks down, so that like when I ended up beating the game, it was 113 hours, which was pretty much on par with how long it took me to beat the original Persona 5 like one playthrough, but I got 20 hours more of story content and stuff. So it did a good job of cutting out a whole bunch of that like tedious busy work in the the dungeons themselves and the palaces themselves. There's still a lot. Like everybody kind of points to Okumura being like the long, super long and painful one, but like I think pretty much any of them, Okumura and beyond, become just so long and tedious. Like I hate the Shiho one.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the
Shido one, yeah,
the Shido one on the cruise ship. I hate that one so much just because it's just thing after thing after thing after thing, and it just feels like it never ends.
His I felt like has like when looking back on it, it has a lot more events that you have to do.
It does.
Versus like a lot of like exploration stuff. Like Okumura's just takes forever to navigate. There's so many different like
The vent puzzle just kind of sucks too. Like when you're trying to vent your team through the things, like it's not like a fun puzzle.
Yeah.
Also, it glitched on me.
And I like the whole mouse thing. I'm just like this isn't fun. So yeah, like that's the one that I really hated going back to and just being like, oh my god, am I done with this one yet? What the hell? Like that one took me a whole friggin' afternoon to just sit down and play through. So never again. Well, or until like actually I probably will never go back to that game just because it is such a commitment. Great game, but yeah, there are some things that I wish still had been streamlined more, or just I didn't have to. I wish I didn't have to do certain things of that game 3 times through across all of my multiple playthroughs. But glad you're enjoying it, Cam. Enjoy your time in Hawaii that's coming up.
I will say, if we're talking about schedule-wise, like when we will do that spoiler cast, I will probably be done with this game within a week or 2.
Okay.
Like I cannot imagine with how much time I'm putting into it now that it's going to be any more than a week, maybe a week and a half. So.
Okay. Well, we will definitely aim to try and get that one because we're gonna try and do the Last of Us one here in the next week or so and have that ready to go soon thereafter. So maybe we'll try and do the Persona one in between the Last of Us one and when Last of Us Part 2 comes out, so we can squeeze it in there before those of us that are gonna dive into that game get all of our time sucked up into that for a week or so. Frank, let's throw it over to you to talk about, because you, as you pointed out before we started recording, you've not been on the show since the remaster for Tony Hawk got announced. So tell us your Tony Hawk 1 and 2 remaster thoughts as the champion of Tony Hawk Pro Skater from the first season of that Ultimate Video Game List show. So much so that you nominated the game twice because Cameron here vetoed it the first time around. Tell us, that had
You
to
say like I'm a villain. I got Symphony of the Night on the list, man.
You did. Only because I reminded you to put Symphony of the Night on the list as opposed to
Legend of Dragoon.
Legend of Dragoon.
Either way, it would have been a smashing success either way.
I would have vetoed Legend of Dragoon. I wouldn't have let that stand for PS1.
How dare you? How dare you, sir? Legend of the Dragoon is a classic. It is an incredible game.
So Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 getting the remaster treatment. What are your thoughts there, Frank?
Man, this was really a roller coaster for me because like they were just based on the announcement itself. Like you think I would just be all about it, but immediately, it's like that thing when an ex like texts you out of the blue and is like, "Hey, I'm gonna come back into your life," and like, "No, I've really changed. I've seriously made some improvements. Like, it's not gonna be like last time, like with Tony Hawk Pro Skater 5." And like, I was very wary of this immediately off the bat. Like, I heard the announcement, I went and looked up the trailer, and I watched the trailer, and I got it. Like, it was that thing of like trying not to get excited, like trying to just stamp all that down because I was like, I can't get hurt on this again. And they've already done these HD sort of remakes, like when they did 1 and 2, kind of. It wasn't the full 1 and 2. It was just random levels from 1 and 2 kind of slammed together, and as like a lot of people kind of agree, it wasn't really the best. It was very cheap and it just didn't play right. But that was one of my biggest concerns with this was who's developing it. So that's why immediately after the trailer, I just dove in and started researching this as much as I could, because Robomoto made that HD remake. They also made the Tony Hawk Pro Skater 5, which was awful. And they are finally off this franchise. They're finally gone. I don't If you look up all the other games they've all made too, they're all awful. But like, I'm so glad they made the Hunger Games game. So I'm like just they can go do that stuff like that, and I'm glad that this game is now at a team that is actually like has a good track record and is also very passionate about games and Tony Hawk. It's with Vicarious Visions, and I
Yeah.
believe this is also the team that specifically did the Crash Insane trilogy,
Yeah.
which was a great remaster of Crash. And it sounds like they're definitely huge fans of the PS1 kind of era, and Tony Hawk is right hand in hand with that. So like at the end of the day, I decided I am very excited for this. I am going to be getting it day one, 100% for sure. I missed the chance to pre-order the limited edition that comes with the signed skateboard. I do kind of want that because I have the old signed skateboard from Project 8 back in the day, like when they did that limited edition. So
Uh-huh.
I kind of want to get this just to have like both of them like on the wall somewhere. Um, but I'm very excited. I cannot wait. This is now probably one of my most anticipated games because I definitely know this is going to be one of those things to just dive in and probably play just all day. And um, some of the things I'm kind of excited about with it is the big things I was looking for is obviously I wanted the new developers. I am excited about the developers they brought in. The game looks great, and one of the things I'm excited about too is it's a big deal of how it actually plays because of how the Neversoft's gameplay was just so tight and almost like perfect. And they I don't know if you guys had heard this, but they actually have Neversoft's code for the
Yep.
gameplay, and that's what they're using basically. Like they're completely redoing all of the art assets and all the textures and everything else, but then they're basically like using Neversoft's gameplay and then just trying to kind of bring it up a little bit by adding in some of the things they added in like Pro Skater 3 and 4. So you should be able to revert. I was thinking about this the other day. I don't think you can sticker slap, which is somewhat unfortunate, but that's not like super needed. I think that came in with Thug. Um, but I'm just excited for basically they hit all of the green check flags that I wanted to hear to be excited about this, and
Yeah.
I'm just 100% on board.
Glad to hear it. Yeah, it's and the are you happy with the soundtrack? Looks like they're
Yeah,
getting most of the like iconic numbers back for this one.
yeah. I looked at it, and so far they're being a little. They're so far they have everything I would super care about, or would have said like I'm sad this isn't here. They're being a little bit cagey about some things because there's one band that has multiple songs, and they're not saying like what songs they have from some of the bands. They're just saying they have the band signed on. And we'll kind of get some of the more details on that, but based on how it looks right now, I'm very excited based on what they have. And the songs they weren't able to get, I none of them I particularly cared about. I mean, they got Papa Roach, guys. They did it.
There you go. Yeah, yeah. I saw the like the day that that news broke and everything. Like I remember like pulling out my phone when I woke up or something and seeing this and being like, "Oh, yay for all of my friends that love Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2, and one I guess as well." And I saw it and I was like, maybe I'll go ahead and pick this one up when it comes out. We'll see what else the end of the year is looking like by the time that comes out. How busy everything else is, but given how much you guys really sung its praises on the first season of that Ultimate Video Game List show, it's like maybe it's time to hop in on that. Like you talking about like sticker slaps and whatnot. I'm like I don't know what any of that means because the most skateboardery thing that I've played in the last 10 years was Ollie Ollie on my Vita.
Great
Um,
game.
yeah, great game. It to this day still has some of my rarest trophies because I put a ton of time into that game and did like all of the tricks or whatever. And it was a PS Plus game, so a whole bunch of people have it. So but they never actually played it or they didn't get those trophies. So, yeah, like the trophies that I have in that game are like a couple of my super rarest of the rare trophies. And yeah, I enjoyed it, but I couldn't tell you an ollie from a vert, from a flip kick, from a I don't know. I've run out of names of things I think I know, but it'll be interesting to hop in and play Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 when
I,
they are remastered later this year.
I felt validated when this remaster was announced and everybody was talking about how hyped they were, and then everybody started posting the old scores from like the Tony Hawk series, and you see that it's from Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 pretty much all the way through almost into the 360 gen. It's just all like 9.2, 9.3, 9.5, and even when it starts to dip, it's still like 8.8. And I'm just
Hmm.
like, this was really an awesome franchise, even though it came out every year. And for a while, everyone was buying it like it was huge, and now it's just been dead, and so many people probably don't even are probably aren't even aware of this franchise anymore, and I'm just happy to see it back from the dead, and I hope
Or
we get more
yeah,
from here.
or they're aware of it in the same way that I was, where it's like, oh, that's the one that like people used to really like, but just fell off a cliff, fell horribly off a cliff with like because I saw all of the stories surrounding Tony Hawk Pro Skater 5 and how like the game that was on the disc was like just basically a demo of the game, and you had to have an internet connection to download the rest of the game, and that kind of stuff. And it's like
it,
that's just absolute bullshit for like the people who live out in the burbs or something that that don't have the great internet connection or aren't connected to their console internets or whatever.
and like it came out the day they were going to lose the Tony Hawk license. If they didn't
Yeah.
have a game out by that day, they were done with Tony Hawk, and could like I'm assuming he was out of the contract and like he could go sign with someone else. And I'm assuming that's why he's still with Activision, is because like they must have that deal just ongoing.
Hmm.
I was a little bit surprised because I know he was not that happy with Activision. Obviously, how like this is his name and his franchise has been awful for like 15 years. And I know he's not a game developer, but he really seems like he genuinely cares and wants to
Yeah.
make like a good experience.
I mean, he
And
was out like doing press for this one. He was excited to be like, this is, like was it because the day the announcement happened, it leaked, early because he was texting or DMing people or whatever, like, hey, stay tuned, we got a big announcement coming out or whatever. So yeah, he seems like genuinely happy to be involved with this one at least, compared to some of the more recent ones.
that's why I hope it. I really hope like it because I have good feelings about this. And but my point isn't even just like what are we going to get from here. It's kind of almost like the same conversation with Crash, is it's like this is the test bed for us getting more like in the future. Like they could, I would be totally if they just went through the whole line and started remastering like 3, 4, Thug 1 and 2. Like if we could get Thug 1 and 2 in a package, like that would just be amazing,
Oh, I would love that.
like fully remastered and like you just oh my god, dude, like that's what this is the thing I want to see. But even if they just want to go off and start doing new stuff, at this point I think the series is in good hands, so I'm just excited to see what comes.
Hey, can you imagine? Just take a moment. Think of all like the iconic like real life locations that they put in those games. And can you imagine actually like having like modern graphics with that? Oh,
Yeah,
that'd be awesome.
man, I want to see just like Trevor and I still have the story of when we actually went to Alcatraz and we were pulling up to on the boat, and I looked at it and I was like, oh my god, like I've been here because of Tony Hawk. Like Tony Hawk in Pro Skater 4 has the Alcatraz level, and it's modeled almost like one for one for Alcatraz with like a few changes. Like the library is even there, and I was like, oh my god, like, and yeah, to take that and put it in like 4K and like yeah, and that's why I want to see. There's a bunch of amazing levels in 1 and 2 that we're gonna get, but I want to see the things from the other things. Like I want to see the airport, I want to see the foundry, I want to see Canada, I want to see Alcatraz. Like
Yeah, I'll be very curious to see if they do either kind of like DLC levels or something like that, or if they even go the Halo Master Chief Collection route where they kind of say, hey, we're gonna go ahead and add Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 to this collection now, as a thank you for buying this thing or whatever. We'll see kind of where they go with that kind of stuff. I know kind of I've heard Tim Geddes talk a lot about it, and he in his conversations with the Vicarious Visions people, he kind of echoes your sentiment, and they're saying all the right things. They know what this should be. It's just a matter of like, will they be able to expand past 1 and 2 here, and what comes next for the series. But cool. I'm glad you are super excited for it, Frank. Look forward to hearing you talk about it later when it comes out. Or I mean, even that because you got the warehouse demo that'll be coming out sometime this summer, basically. So you get to kind of get your first taste of it then. So
Dude, that's one of the best levels in a video game ever. Then you want to talk about just a tutorial level? Amazing.
nice. So one of the things I have on my list is just kind of the update. I have now finished Avatar: The Last Airbender. I finished it last night. I thought, like, I knew I was coming up the end of season 3, but for some reason I thought there were 4 seasons of that show. So
You
I was
would
like,
think so, yeah, no, but no.
yeah. And it must be that I was confusing it with Legend of Korra. But yeah, because I'm coming up on the story. I'm like, oh, they're really tying this whole thing up. Like, where's it gonna go in the next season? And then it's like, nope, that's the end. And I was like, oh, okay, there isn't a next season. Okay, cool. Really enjoyed that series. I thought it was a really, really strong series. I tweeted out the other day when I had finished season 2, just how like Empire Strikes Backy that the end of season 2 feels. And a whole bunch of people were like, "Yep, absolutely. It's absolutely being Star Wars." And sure enough, season 3 kind of hits a lot of those same kind of Return of the Jedi notes. So, but yeah, really enjoyed it. Had a lot of fun with it. Like a lot of the different character arcs that we see over the course of that series. Again, I don't want to dive into spoilers here myself for people who are experiencing it for the first time, like I was. But really cool. Great series, and I'm like immediately interested in trying to seek out and find where I can watch Legend of Korra, or if I just need to go and like buy Legend of Korra on like Amazon Prime or something like that, to hop into that series next. So, yay for Avatar: Last Airbender, and also I also now need to watch the film The Last Airbender. Just so I can enjoy it, because Ben and Chloe did last week's That Wannabe Film class on The Last Airbender to suffer for our entertainment. So I want to be able to watch that terrible movie, which I've known is a terrible movie. That's the first thing I ever knew about The Last Airbender, really, was that it's a terrible movie. And then just enjoy kind of Ben and Chloe's thoughts on the film as well as the series as a whole. Because when they sent me over the audio file, I was like, well, I can't listen to this as I edit anything, because I don't want to be spoiled on the series yet. So now that I'm wrapped up, I can kind of hop in and hear their thoughts on that as well. But yeah, Avatar, real good. I'm very curious. I feel like Toph definitely, I think, ends up being like my favorite character on that series.
I love her.
She's great.
From like the minute she gets introduced all the way through the end.
Yep.
I really liked how Uncle Iroh really grew on me over the course of the series. And yeah, just lots of fun there. And like Sokka, definitely still dumb at times, but like I appreciated him as kind of like the everyman character with them, as like the non-bender.
You have to have somebody to remind you of your humanity, the Hawkeye.
Yeah. So yeah, lots of fun stuff there in Avatar: The Last Airbender, and I look forward to seeing kind of where Legend of Korra goes, and obviously also seeing Last Airbender now in the context of like Dave Filoni kind of telling his story on the Disney Gallery series that we talked about on Disney Plus a couple weeks ago. It's the fact that he tells the story of like meeting George Lucas, and George Lucas specifically wanting him because of his work on The Last Airbender. I'm like, yeah, obviously George Lucas would have seen this and been like, oh yeah, they're doing a Star Wars. Okay, yeah, I like that. And just bringing Dave Filoni in
you're doing a Star Wars with this kung fu stuff. Would you like to do Star Wars with just Star Wars stuff?
Yeah, that sounds fun. All right, we can move on from our George Lucas impressions now.
I'm glad you like
my favorite part about that story though is how he thought the SpongeBob guys were pranking him.
Oh yeah. It was a fun little bit. So yeah, highly recommend Avatar: The Last Airbender on Netflix for those who have not seen it, or if you just have and want to revisit it. It's a great thing to throw on during these, more troubling days.
I'm glad you really liked it, because that was one of those shows that like premiered and kind of was on the entire time, like when I was a kid and kind of growing up. I was in like that Target demo, I guess, and like
Hmm.
I loved it, like because especially I don't think of it just as like a kid's show, but for something that was
Yeah,
on like Nickelodeon, like that is way better than like anything else they had going on.
absolutely. Yeah, that's. I mean, like, even the idea that the characters age and change and their physical appearance changes over the course of that show, oftentimes dramatically and drastically. Like, even that is an element that you so rarely see in animation because it takes that much more time to like come up with new character models for those different phases of a character's life. And so even something like that just felt like such a breath of fresh air, coming in and watching this series. And then yeah, like so little of that series feels like targeted solely at children in the way that, like, oh, lots like something like SpongeBob feels like much more of a children's show to me. Admittedly, I haven't watched a ton of SpongeBob either, but like Avatar felt like it was telling mature stories and adult stories, with mature themes and talking about loss and grief and all this stuff. So yeah, I was wildly impressed, by but the stories it was telling.
And to your point there, because that was another show, SpongeBob, that was on the same time that I would have been in the Target demo for, and that one, no offense to anybody who loves it, like I know a lot of people who are fans, but that just didn't do it for me. But it's because not a lot of the stuff that was kind of more like that, like if it was more kiddie or more especially cartoony, it just didn't do it for me. But that's why I was like, oh wow, like Avatar's like really special, and it was that kind of thing where you had to try to, like, you couldn't just binge it, you had to just try to find like when it was on, and it was constantly moving, and I always wanted to see like what was happening in their journey. That's also another thing I really like too, is that obviously it is like this giant overarching story from beginning to end where you do have all this character growth. It's not just
Hmm.
like, oh, what's going on week to week? Who are we fighting now? Like, like I don't know. It was something that it was a show I enjoyed and I thought was really awesome. So I'm glad you got to kind of like come experience that with it. I'm sure like a ton of new people too now that it's on Netflix.
Yeah, and I am, to that point, I am super glad I was able to just binge it, over the course of like the last week and a half or whatever it's been, last couple weeks, I guess. Because yeah, this is one of those shows that, like, binging has spoiled a lot of like episodic television for me, where I'm just like, I don't want to have to sit and wait week over week to enjoy a story like this. And so the
Imagine
idea
waiting
of
years.
exactly, and the idea
Yeah.
of like
Oh,
this being a story told over 4 years, would have been, very frustrating, just during those long droughts of nothingness.
Trevor, what
Um,
if I told you that in season 3, the episodes having to do with the prison and everything, those actually came out on DVD before they aired on live Nickelodeon.
that would be that's I mean that's a weird programming note.
They
Yep.
had a bunch of
Th-
weird programming stuff with that show. It was all over the place in like a super weird
Ni-
way. I missed like half a season that I still haven't seen.
Nickelodeon is by far, like, when it comes to programming, one of like the worst networks that I've ever seen, because there's just such little consistency that sometimes it feels like they were just like they just put the scheduling in an RNG generator and just said, okay, go ahead and generate us, and Avatar didn't come up for like 6 months.
Hmm.
Like, it's frustrating as all hell to
Yeah.
be like a big fan. This is the last season. Every episode's super hyped,
Yep.
and they don't even advertise the finale.
I mean, like, it has that weird echo then again with Clone Wars, in that, like, all of the weird stuff that happened with Clone Wars in not this last season, but the first last season that you had of Clone Wars, or actually, I guess, like, this, I feel like this was the third last season that we had, because there was like the last
Technically,
season
yeah.
that aired, and then the last season that like was
Netflix.
Netflix only or something like that, and
Yep.
then now this last season. um, so yeah, it's a weird animation, like, scheduling stuff. But now that I'm done with that, like I said, I'm gonna try and seek out and find and dive into Legend of Korra. But also I saw, so HBO Max came out this last week. So one of the next series that I'm gonna hop into that I've heard nothing but great things about is probably gonna be Steven Universe, which I
Ooh.
saw in HBO Max. So I've got that kind of added to my queue over there. So I look
That
forward
show's
to.
just a little bit just outside of my realm of like getting into.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have heard nothing but like the most amazing, positive, wonderful things about it. But it is just a little bit too over there for me. And it's as somebody who's like I've done a little bit of, I've dabbled in the research on the lore of the series to kind of try to get myself interested, and it's just not really able to. And I don't think it's a fault for the series. It's just not my cup of tea.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that people like Miranda Sanchez and Jared.
Yeah, Jared Petty and Belinda
Jared
Garcia
Petty,
are the
Belinda
two that
Garcia.
I know that
Did I say
just,
Miranda?
like,
Who did I say? Miranda Sanchez. Who's that?
it's
From IGN.
From IGN. Yeah, anime.
Yeah, no, okay, yeah, no, she's a big proponent of it.
Yeah.
Okay,
it
yeah,
wouldn't
nope.
surprise me if she is. But yeah.
Okay, no, oh, you said, oh, okay, nope, it's cool,
Yeah,
we're good.
yeah.
I'm like, there are three main people, and I didn't realize that we had just named all three of those main people. I thought we were still missing one. And I was like, wait, who are we missing? Did I say a fake name? Like, what happened here?
Yeah.
No, but like those people who are super into Steven Universe, and I'm like, these are really cool people, and I usually like what they like.
I think Christian's also a
Yeah.
super huge fan
Oh,
of it.
Christian's massive into it.
Yeah.
What was that, Frank?
No, that's just what I was gonna say. Is because I know I haven't seen it, and I've heard nothing but amazing things. And Christian's been like a huge fan, and I know he's had nothing but like amazing things to say about it, like almost the entire time I've known him.
Yeah. So like
Yeah.
those are on HBO Max as well as all the Studio Ghibli stuff. Which I just need to basically
Ooh.
like I'm gonna understand Christian so much more if I just enjoy my HBO Max.
Should we
subscription.
do a? Should we do? Oh man, we should do a. Ghibli stuff is so good.
I talked in our recent kind of team pitch meeting last week. I talked about the idea of like, and this was before I realized that they were all coming to Max. It was just I wanted to sit down and watch Studio Ghibli stuff. So I talked with Christian about the idea of like, maybe we do a series where he kind of tells me what to like do a before and after kind of podcast on it where we talk about like what he thinks of it, spoiler free, and then I go and watch it, and then we talk about kind of me coming back to it after the fact or something like that. So maybe there will be some kind of Studio Ghibli content somewhere down the line here from that nerdy site, but all still up in the air. But yeah, it's definitely something that now I have accessible to me in an easy way. So I'm eager to hop in and finally see kind of what all the hubbub on those films has been about for all of these many years. So yeah, let me throw it back over to you, Cam, real quick. You've been having some computer woes. What's going on with your computer, buddy?
I don't know what originally happened to it. It just kind of like there was an error and issues with like getting it to boot up and load. And in the process of like trying to recover it and get it back to working, I've wiped everything off of it. Which was like a big blow, but I'm over it. That was like a week and a half ago. And now I'm at the point where I'm just trying to like install Windows onto my computer, and the hard drives are good. Everything seems to be good, but it keeps on telling me that this has an error, and I have just like left it alone for a couple of days because like I can't deal with that right now.
Mm-hmm.
I've thought I figured out what the problem is like several times, and I feel like I've constantly been taking steps backwards instead of forwards, and it's been a nightmare. So. I had wanted to like doing some streaming and stuff. Like I figured some stuff out as far as like audio stuff for like my PS4 and whatnot. But because I wanted to get back to playing Undertale and streaming that. But so that's been a massive pain in my life, in my heart. Because it's like it's just been frustrating. But it's a nightmare.
I can imagine. I wish you the best in getting it resolved and fixed. I was talking earlier. I've got a new PC that arrived on Friday here that I'm going to try and kind of swap out some of my systems to make that kind of it's a primarily a streaming PC. So I'll try and get streaming back up on my end / streaming from the That Nerdy Site kind of channel account and really get that back up and running. But the idea of like swapping out a PC while I still had like all the shows to sit down and record this weekend, I was like, that's not going to be a great timing. I don't want to disrupt all of that setup stuff until I've got a little bit of like breathing room. So that's kind of going to be one of my big projects for the week will be getting the new system set up, and then getting this current one that I'm currently recording and use for like editing and stuff switched over to like kind of my other alternate backup desktop. So yay for new computers in this very fun trying times in the world. Here's hoping that I don't like lose my job in the next week or so and suddenly be stuck having to deal with this kind of outstanding bill or something. But yay for computers.
You say that, and it's like, what the heck, Trevor? What do you mean?
No. I mean, like I had plenty of money to like I'm fine. I'm not really worried about it or anything like that. It's just kind of like, hey, yeah, if I did suddenly lose my job, it's like, well, maybe I shouldn't have spent that much money on a new computer when the computers I have work, just not as optimally as I would have liked. So, but yeah, whatever. I'll be fine. Frank, talking about computer woes, sort of segue. You wanted to download or you wanted to play some Call of Duty, but you've been having some file size woes on that one, right? So tell me about Call of Duty World War II.
Yeah, so like this is a known thing with I guess people complain about a lot of games with this now, but I know it's like a really known thing with Call of Duty specifically, and I'm one of those people that goes back to this franchise roughly every year. I mean, I fall behind, I guess, which is why we're talking about World War II, which came out in like 2017, I think, might have been 2018. I usually wait until it kind of dies down a little bit, and they're pretty cheap. And in this case, it actually dropped on PS Plus, so I just got it for free. It was kind of one of those ones that they're, hey, this is the PS Plus free game this month, and I went, oh, I've been meaning to buy that because it's only like $15-20 now. I love going back to those going through those campaigns, just like almost like popcorn movie style. But the thing that's like super annoying, especially even when you just want to do like a campaign run when the campaign's only like 4 or 5 hours, is you go to like download these things. And the one I was trying to download was 82 gigs, and then it was another 14 gigs on top of that. And so that's just for this like 2-3 year old game, and it's just the game, and like I'm not even downloading like, oh, all the DLC, all the map packs. It's like this is just the base game and like the textures and shit.
Yeah.
And it took like all day. Like I have pretty good internet, but it still took like all day, because that was what I was going to do today, is I was going to dive in and start playing the campaign. I'm going to do a couple rounds of multiplayer. I usually dive in for a bit and just kind of see what they've added, what they've changed. And now I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'm going to go back to trophy hunting in The Last of Us then. It's still, in the time it took me to play through like 2 weeks of multiplayer in The Last of Us and get all of these trophies, World War II finally just finished downloading like before we were going to start recording this, I think. Like it is done now, but I'm like, these file sizes are just like really annoying. I only bring it up because I know a lot of the other people out there have the same frustrations with it, because Modern Warfare, the most recent one they did, is over 100 gigs. And so Warzone, even though it's like a separate download, is also like gigantic. And I'm just like, Activision really needs to get understand like file compression, because I feel like the thing is that they're putting all these like really big 4K textures in, and like all these other crazy like HDR or whatever else is like on there, like, so it's taking up a lot of space. But I feel like the thing is they're just not at all concerned with how much space they're taking up on people's drives, and they're not compressing any of this at all.
Yeah, that's an element of it, and one of the biggest things that I hope we see from the next generation of consoles is I hope they remove the like weird restrictions they've put on the hardware that keeps like, because one of the things is like you can have great internet speeds, but the PS4 is still only gonna it's gonna cap out at how much you can download. It's gonna cap out its download speed kind of thing, which makes giant files like that take that much longer, so much longer than they need to if it wasn't capped, and it could just kind of meet the demands of a higher speed internet or something like that. So I'm hoping that they kind of remedy some of those issues as well moving forward. But yeah, that has definitely been a thing in recent years, is how the ever growing size of these things, that like you're getting to the point where, hey, yeah, you couldn't play some of these games on a base model system because they're that big, or if you're going to have that game on it, you're only going to be able to play like you're only going to have 2 games of that size that you can have on your system at any given time or something like that, just because the absurd level of scope that some of these file sizes are. So like I've been very fortunate in that like a lot of the games I'm playing are, you know, early generation, or like The Last of Us being like one of the most recent ones I re-downloaded or whatever. So it's like I feel like I'm not having to spend too much time downloading those things. But yeah, there are a handful of games where it's like, okay, I'm going to download this and then I'm going to go do something else for 4 hours and then I'll come back and play eventually.
But that's like, even like, I didn't even think about that till you mentioned it. But like The Last of Us in its entirety is the size of what you minimally need to require to boot up World War II. And like, you need to download like 20 gigs just to be able to launch the game, and you still haven't downloaded like anything for multiplayer, and you can only play like the first level or two of like the campaign. And I'm like, and in that same storage space, you can play all in the entirety of The Last of Us Left Behind and the entire multiplayer suite. And like, that's just where one of the things where I'm just like, this is crazy. And like, to your other point too, is if you have the 500 or the 1 terabyte like base hard drives, you can't hold every Call of Duty from this gen. If you only played Call of Duty, you still have to go back and then uninstall the old one off your drives, because you couldn't hold this entire generation of Call of Duties on one hard drive unless you got like another external drive, and now you have more than 1 terabyte, because all of them are over 100 gigs, including going all the way back to Infinite Warfare was also like 80-90 gigs, and that had the Call of Duty 4 original remaster, which was like 30 or 40 gigs.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, then they're just gonna keep getting bigger as the systems keep expanding, you know, size and scope, and we see stuff like that Unreal 5 demo kind of showcase the scale that they can keep adding detail to. So we'll see where we go with that in the new generation. But yeah, that's honestly one of the things I think I like, quality of life wise, that I think the new consoles need to address is the ability to download those file sizes more efficiently and more effectively. And so it isn't hey, I'm going to play this thing and it's going to take me all day to play it, so I guess I'm not going to play it today, because of that kind of nonsense. But well, enjoy, now that you have it, enjoy your Call of Duty World War II time, and have some fun there. Last little thing I wanted to talk about is another game I've been kind of dabbling back into, and this kind of has jumped out at me as I was talking to somebody recently about like games that I feel like nobody else played, or like in those like games that more people could have played or should have played. One of my favorite games from the Super Nintendo era is a game called Secret of Evermore, which is like the like baby brother effectively to Secret of Mana, which is the one that got way more kind of like recognition in the era. But Secret of Evermore I really enjoyed. It's this guy who like is the like B level science fiction horror movie buff guy who, like, everything he talks, like, he relates to that he experiences, he references, like, you know, oh, this is just like, you know, space girls from outer space or whatever. And you know, he'll reference a character saying a line or something like that. But this guy, he and his dog kind of get transported into this like mystical world that has like a variety of different kind of like aesthetic levels to it. So you start out in like the kind of the prehistoric level where your dog is like a giant cave wolf creature, and then eventually you go to like a medieval one, or like a classical world, I guess is what it is, where it's basically like an Egypt setting, and so your dog is, you know, looks like an Anubis type of dog. You go to like a French Revolution era where like a Renaissance style where your dog becomes a poodle, and then there's also like a futuristic thing where you get a robo dog kind of thing. Anyway, the as you're trying to kind of like work through all this stuff, it's a very like early level action RPG where you're you're attacking things in real time, and you have like a charge meter that has to like recharge before you can get like a full attack level back to you. But then you have your spells, instead of like having magic points. They did one of the things I thought was really cool is an alchemy based system. So like if you want to cast a healing spell, you have to have like a water element and an oil element or something like that, and basically you need to make sure you have the materials to cast the spells you want to cast. And yeah, it's just a fun game that I've been thinking about a lot recently, and saw somebody else kind of tweeting about it recently too, and so I was like, I'm gonna hop back in and play that. And so I've been dabbling a little bit in that game, just kind of revisiting it. It's definitely it definitely has some early pacing problems, in terms of like, wow, I've been fighting this boss for 20 minutes and it's like the second boss of the game, that I think I probably was less annoyed by when I was a kid and just had much more time to be doing those kinds of things. But yeah, it's a fun game that I've hopped back into, and for those that like know about it, or played it back in the day, I am with you, and it's fun hopping back into as just kind of like I'm waiting for other things to come out at this point, and so this was a game I wanted to kind of revisit, and also as in my head I'm testing it as like, hey, if I want to try and do streaming in the near future, maybe I'll stream some like SNES level kind of games. Let me see if I can kind of figure out some of that stuff. So I've not been doing like a test stream or something, but I've been kind of looking at the layout of what I would want to do on that front. So this kind of made a nice little kind of guinea pig test for that. So Secret of Evermore, very fun, classic Super Nintendo game that I think could have gotten a lot more love. And it's one of those series that I would love to see, because it's a Squaresoft franchise, so I'd love to see them kind of like remaster it, or just bring it to the Switch. Like, it's one of those games I wish was just on the Switch as part of like the Nintendo Online, because there's no reason it's not, I can't think. So yeah, so Secret of Evermore, that's the last one I wanted to talk about. Anything else you guys wanted to cover this week?
All good on my end.
The only thing
All
I'd
right.
say is if you're looking for an Overwatch watch from me, not really one right now. There was the May Melee that ended last week. There's a break between, there's been some games going on, some exhibition games, not made up of any league teams, but made up by several league players, both retired and current, who are reenacting essentially the two major teams from Apex, which was the pre-Overwatch League, kind of creme de la creme. And it should be noted that many people who you would expect to see try to participate in something like this, they won't be there. If you're looking for like Overwatch League players, most of them are former Seoul Dynasty or the former Vancouver Titans. So it's cool though. If you were a big fan of it and you didn't know about it, or you missed it, go check out the VODs. Without a doubt, you're going to see it. But they also didn't have restrictions, which means you better believe it, they were playing goats, which was gross. Goats is bad. Anyway, enough said. Thank y'all.
Cool.
Thank you for my piece.
This has been your Overwatch Watch with Cameron Abbott. Yeah. All right, well, that's going to do it for this week's episode. Thank you guys for joining me to help me take my mind off of the rest of the world for the last hour and a half. Always a pleasure getting to chat with you guys.
Trevor, I don't know if you saw it yet. We're under curfew.
Oh yeah,
Next.
yeah, I saw that. Thank you. Yeah,
That's
for the week, and Doug Ducey did it without consulting with any of the cities. So yay for more of that kind of nonsense going on in this world.
We backed up for a state of emergency when COVID was just like rampaging our state, but
Yeah.
oh,
Drags his feet on that, but as soon as Fashion Square Mall takes a hit, state of emergency across the valley. Cool. Well, yeah. Time to head back into that world, everybody. So let's go around the table with any plugs. You can follow Cameron at Rev Cabot. Anything you want to give a shout out to, Cameron?
You know what? Yeah, there is. If you're able to check out the different organizations that are taking donations for supporting members of the protest in Black Lives Matter, whether it's in Minnesota where the big crux of the protests are happening, or if it's in cities around the country. Um, if you are able to donate, also, this is an important time for people who are not part of the minorities that have been suffering in this country to kind of take a step up and uh, shine lights on where they can and do what we can to help support our brothers and sisters of color who need our help and need our support at this time.
Yeah. Well said. You can follow Frank at Irrelevant Jokes. Anything to add, Frank?
No, nothing to plug for me.
Okay. You can follow me at Trevor J. Starkey on Twitter, and yeah, just I kind of echo, like, obviously go check out all the shows and stuff we got going on, but there are obviously significantly more pressing things hitting the world these days, and like I said at the top, if you want to support us on Patreon, great, but if you can't, or you want to instead kind of take that those resources and support some of the many Black Lives Matter movements that are that need support right now, certainly do that, because Black lives do indeed matter, and it's very painful and very frustrating just seeing the stuff I'm seeing these days. Let alone, I couldn't imagine even having to experience it and live it firsthand. So shout out to everybody that has suffered and has had to deal with that stuff for many years, and will sadly, unfortunately, probably have to deal with it for many years to come, because change like this does not happen overnight. But you can go support all those things. They're easy enough to find, but do a little bit of due diligence and make sure you're not supporting scam GoFundMe's or something like that. There are plenty of threads out there that kind of can highlight and direct you to the right places to give your resources. You can follow all of us over at That Nerdy Site. Check out thatnerdysite.com for the latest content. And if you do want to support us, you can support us on Patreon, patreon.com/thatnerdysite, where every patron gets early access to a monthly bonus episode of the show. This month's episode is Frank and Jazz sitting down talking about a mishmash of procedural shows as well as reality shows that they either grew up with or just kind of enjoy over the years. So you can go check that out. If you liked what you heard, please rate, review, like, subscribe, all that fun stuff here. And thank you for listening. Stay safe out there. As always, stay nerdy and be good to each other.